What does freedom mean to you? Does it mean the freedom to choose? The freedom to have a family and raise your kids according to your own values? What about living a wild, adventurous life, experimenting with music, relationships, or art? What does freedom really mean? What if freedom meant something that only a few Americans still understood? What if it meant that your choices and your values were set by you, rather than by some politician in a far-off capital? Some people think we're only free to choose to live exactly how they live, by their moral code, or their narrow worldviews. But if liberty means anything, it means that you, and you alone, have the power to exercise your rights to which the laws of nature and nature's God granted you. It's time to put these principles back into action. It's time to restore the American dream, activate in our communities, and take our country back. It's time to wake up, America. Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Petersen. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. It's 7:02. Let's get this show on the road. First up on the top of the show today, former Nebraska Senator Ben Sasse wrote an article in the Wall Street Journal titled "America's True Divide: Pluralists versus Zealots." He calls to stop making politics about partisan identities and tribalism and get back to persuasion and policy. What, reasonableness? No, that's not what you want, right? You want your social media morning talk show host to be like, crazy as hell and talking all kinds of weird stuff and making everybody hate each other. You know, we hate these people, you hate those people, let's all fight. Oh, give me clicks. No, I don't think that's what you come here for. We'll talk about that article. It's actually a fantastic piece. I wish that I had written it, and we'll discuss that at the top of the show. At 7:18 this morning, pure, clean water. Have you ever seen a communist drinking water? Actually, no, I have not. How important is it to start your day with a big glass of clean H2O? Hydration can apparently significantly impact your physical health, according to a new research study that came out talking about your day-to-day bodily functions and how important it is for you to get yourself properly hydrated. So, tell you what, while you're listening to the show this morning, why don't you go get yourself a big glass of clear, cold ice water this morning, and let's start off with some proper hydration. That's some high-quality H2O. All right. And thank you. At 7:30 this morning, John Miltimore joins us from the Foundation for Economic Education to talk about Donald Trump's threats to run third party. What do we think? I think that that sounds kind of exciting. Will he run as a member of the Libertarian Party? Wouldn't that be awesome? I know you'd love that. Wait a minute, what's that I hear out there? Some of you are...
No, God! No, God, please,
Really?
No,
You don't think Donald Trump would make a great candidate for the...
No.
What if he won and then the Libertarian Party would be installed in office? Isn't that what you guys want, right? That would be...
Perfect.
I know, you'd love it. I can hear it right now. Oh, come on now. The Mises Caucus took over, and I know some of them are Trump-friendly, so what do you think about it? He'd run Whig for sure, says Michael Nip. Good morning, Michael. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning. I'm barely starting to feel a little bit better today, so I'm in a little more sprightly mood, if you will. So glad to have you here. And at 7:51 this morning, Charlie Kirk and Tucker Carlson slammed atheist Sam Harris as a terrified little child. What was interesting was not just the petty attacks on Sam Harris, who's obviously an authoritarian little SHI, what. But what I liked about it is that when they were attacking atheists, they actually made a distinction between agnostics and atheists in their attacks on Sam Harris, which I thought was kind of fascinating. Usually they all get lumped in together whenever conservatives are talking about atheists, or they just don't know what an agnostic was. But I thought it was very interesting the way that Charlie Kirk and Tucker Carlson were making a distinction there. We'll talk about that. And then I've got a really funny clip of Tucker Carlson and Mike Rowe going out laughing at lazy tech employees. It's going to be fun. And that'll be the 7:51 segment. And at 8 o'clock this morning, we've got Camellia Petersen coming on the program today. I'm so excited. She's got a great piece from our friend John Combus, who I try to book on the show, but he's so busy that he won't come on. To talk about 18 things, or 10, excuse me, 10 things that you should not do in 2023. That's right. Libertarians are going to tell you what you can't do, and we're going to mandate it by law, right? No, I don't think we are. But it'll be fun to talk to Camellia at 8 a.m. And then at 8:30 this morning, Bex Bullet. Yeah, you know her, Bex Bullet, our regular Tuesday 8:30 guest, is going to be talking us about the Brian Kohlberger story. He was the accused, alleged killer of 4 college students in Idaho, and of course, BX Bullet being in the criminal justice field. She works as a private investigator. She's going to talk a little bit about this, and she's going to compare it to the Manson murders, which I think is going to be kind of fascinating. If you have a question for the show today, or you want to send us a text, you can at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. Chris Morrill, I see what you're talking about over there in the chat, and that topic is so rife with insanity that I think I'd like to avoid it today, just because it's all you do is make people unhappy when you address that. You can't make people happy, no matter what you do with that topic. And not every day do I need to fall on my sword, do I? For on the altar of truth, um, I can be truthful and talk about other topics. How about that? The most important divide, this is the story that I think really matters. The most important divide in American politics, it's not about left or right. It's not about up or down. It's not about this versus that. It's what Ben Sasse describes as pluralists versus zealots. And normally when I see a headline, something like that, my eyes would just kind of fly. This just sounds boring. So let's just want to move on. But because it was written by Ben Sasse, who I think has a really interesting, more independent style minded take on politics, kind of like myself, I thought it was worthy to share with you. So let's talk about what he postulates in this really great article from the Wall Street Journal, which I highly recommend that you read in full. And I'm going to break down and distill for you today. First of all, let's define, as Ben Sasse defines it, what is a civic pluralist versus what he considers a zealot. He describes civic pluralists as people who believe that ideas move the world more than power does, right? Ideas versus power, which is why pluralists value debate and persuasion. We believe, and I guess he's considering himself a pluralist, that America is great because it is good, and America is good because the country is committed to human dignity, even for those with whom we disagree. I think is important there, right? Even people who disagree with you have rights, right? A famous tweet of mine. A continental nation of 330 million souls, Ben Sasse writes, couldn't possibly agree on everything, but we can hash out our disagreements in the communities where we live and the institutions that we build. The small but important role for government for the civic pluralist, Ben Sasse, or if you would consider yourself one possibly, is a framework for what he calls ordered liberty. Government doesn't give us rights. Amen. Love to hear that. What libertarians like myself believe, that government doesn't give us rights or meaning or purpose or permission. Again, I think we need another applause for that one. Yes, it exists to protect us from the whims of mobs and majorities. Amen. Absolutely. I know some people are like,
How dare you?
Yes, I know. Here we are. Moving on to the political zealots. Political zealots reject this view of society. They reject this, and they hold that society starts and ends with power. Think about that. Society begins and ends with power. Power. Think about what's that quote from Chairman Mao? All political power flows through the barrel of a gun. That is a Maoism. Mao would be a zealot in this view. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen, good morning. Good morning to Dustin, Quest Fanning, Rare Camellia, A.N. Henry, and all of our friends this morning for joining us nice and bright and early. You can text the show at 573-319-1586. We're starting the program this morning with a little bit of a big brain topic, an article that was written in the Wall Street Journal by Ben Sasse about civic pluralists versus what he calls political zealots. And we're on political zealots right now, talking about what is a zealot, somebody who holds that society starts and ends with power. Government, in their view, isn't to protect from the powerful or the popular, right? More than anything else, zealots on the right and left seek total victory in the public square. They believe that the center of life is government power. They preach Jeremiads, which is an awesome word, by the way, Jeremiads, of victimhood and decline. And boy, please just answer me this. Aren't you sick? And I imagine if you're a regular listener to the Wake Up America show too, you probably feel the same way as me. Aren't you sick and tired of the doom scrollers and the doomsayers and the collapsitarianism and the constant negativity about the future of American society? Always with America in decline, this, oh, the end of the society, that and stuff. And I understand that being a member of the liberty movement, that seeing how things are with government, that things can be depressing, and that there is this pull, this desire to on the behalf of some people to just say, let's give up. Oh, it's pointless, it's useless, there is no future. The left has won, or the authoritarians have won. And I'm sick of it. I do not ascribe to that, because you know what, I believe in the future. I believe that there is a future for liberty in the United States. I believe that there is a future for freedom, and that there is a future for our children. And you know damn well I'm going to fight for it. And I hope that you are too. And I hope that you don't give in to the negativity. And because it's too easy. The media wants you afraid. Right? The media and the mobs want you scared, and the would-be tyrants, the future tyrants that will take over if we do give in to the mob, and if we do give in to our fears, they want you terrified, because you are so much easier to control that way. And I'll tell you, there is a almost erotic a fixation that people have with being scared, because same reason why people love to go haunted housing on Halloween. There is an emotional fixation on fear, and I've seen it in people. It drives them to madness, and I do not share it. I've looked into Nietzsche's void, and I've seen the void and stared into it, and I've seen it stare back. And I can tell you, I didn't like what I saw, because there's no hope, no future that way. Go not abroad in search of monsters to slay, and stare not into the void, for if you do, the void stares back. Not to go all Friedrich Nietzsche. I guess I'm going a little bit too big brain to start out this morning. You can text the show today at 573-319-1586. Cecilia, yes, this is a great pep talk. Get you ready for 2024. Let's make 2024 the greatest year of our lives. Let's continue on with how Ben Sasse describes political zealots, right? These people, they want on the left, they want a powerful bureaucracy. On the right, they want a strong man. But they agree on a central tenet: Americans are too weak to solve problems with persuasion. They need the state to do it. Damn, this is some good stuff. Love it.
Perfect.
Yeah, give me some. Drink your water. Staying hydrated, I think that'll put you in a good mood. Now, the zealots are thriving in the current chaos of this political moment. We're living in a disrupted age. The digital revolution has shifted Americans' technological, economic, geographic, and cultural life, and our political disruption is the result of these changes in our ways of feeling and thinking. Now, modern media, as I was complaining about, excuse me, has transformed Americans' conception of community. As communications are becoming more instantaneous, we've become siloed and more lonely. We know less about our neighbors and more about the viral nut jobs who reinforce our polarized political opinions. Man, this is inject this into my veins. God. Now, the social media, cable television, and clickbait news amplify the angriest voices. This is a casino business model trying to captivate audiences instead of informing them. Social algorithms run on rage. Good faith arguments don't go viral. And I noticed this. I've experimented with this where I've done, back to back types of arguments where it's, nothing but outrage tweet that goes mega viral and gets me a ton of traffic and attention. and then good faith argument, well thought out after years of study and arriving at a conclusion. Crickets. I need a crickets button over here somewhere. I don't have a crickets. There, I think there might be a crickets button actually. Hold on. There is. Can you hear that? I'm not sure if that's working or not, but if it is, then you're hearing crickets. There we go. All right, so this is good stuff. You know what? I'm going to skip this commercial break because I'm feeling good. You guys want to skip the commercial break? All right. Let's continue on because this is some good stuff. If you're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen, I got a great show for you today. Lots of awesome guests. John Miltimore is going to join me at 7:30 this morning, and we're going to have talk to him about Donald Trump threatening to run third party. At 8 o'clock, Camelia Petersen about 10 things you should not do in 2023. If I don't do my commercial break here, then I've got to drink lots of water. We're talking right now about the difference between civic pluralists and political zealots. The stupidity of tribalism has made politics primarily about partisan identities, not persuasion or policy. I'm a black Republican. I'm a transgender Democrat, right? And the screamers on the right and left fuel one another. In a nation as big as ours, there's always somewhere someone saying something stupid, right? But tribalism makes this fact as a lifeblood, right? In order for our continued existence of politics to exist, right, we need this constant outrage infusion in order for us to continue to operate as we have. And trust me, there are people and industries that have a vested interest in ensuring that things continue on as they have been. Like the outrage is fuel for them. They require it. And the only way for us to stop it is to cut it off at its source. Good morning. Welcome to the show. Nice 32 people here today. Glad to have you. Too early to talk about 2024, says Chris Morrill. No, it's not. Dustin says civil war would give the Dems the power to wipe us out if they have the power and they want to. Amen. These are people who have threatened to use even nuclear weapons against their own citizens on our own soil. Exactly. Um, but Ben Sasse's article in the Wall Street Journal continues on. It's the excuse for other civic-minded Americans to ignore the nuts in their own party and obsess only over the nuts in the other party. We're tempted to think that the enemy of our enemy is our friend, but it takes a genuine leader to remind us that most of the time, the enemy of our enemy is still a jackass. Oh, man. Inject that into my veins. How about this? I love it here too. He's criticizing the Senate. He talks about how the Senate has been AWOL in all of this. Usually, at any other disruptive moment in American history, the Senate has had something to contribute. Leaders who have stepped up to contribute to our challenges, and you could love or hate them, but the great senators of the past stood up for ideas, not mere partisanship. Today, presidential hopefuls speechified to an echo chamber, blast fundraising emails during performative hearings, and yell all day. To what end? To go on cable and yell anew all night. And now I don't know if I'm as optimistic as Ben Sasse is here this morning in this article that he writes. Michael Knipp, apparently big fan of his, says Ben Sasse is awesome. The books he's written are great. Oh, and by the way, Michael Knipp over there on YouTube, you can see he's got the little gold bars next to him. Congratulations, Michael. 2 months of Freedom Ninja. For some of you, a lot of you, you're going to be getting your gold bars if you are on the second month of your subscription to the channel. We appreciate you very much. If you're not subscribed to the Freedom Ninja channel, then everybody's going to know it because there's not a little Statue of Liberty or a gold bar next to your name. So you got to get like everybody else. It's $2.99 a month, people. Come on, don't you love AP? All right. Here's what he says, and this is the good news as he continues on. I don't know if I'm this optimistic, but let's play along here. Ben Sasse writes that Americans can and will break the outrage cycle by building institutions. I hope so. Institutions like what? The Wake Up America show, right? This country belongs to the optimists. Yes, give it to us. The innovators. Yes, that's us. Give it to us. And the builders. Yes, that's us. That's you and me. We're building an institution right here, right now. And the places where we'll figure out what comes next are churches, schools, businesses, and neighborhood associations. We're a business, aren't we? Yes, we are. We're the Cantina crew on the Wake Up America show. Now, here's what I think is really the heart of this piece. Ben Sasse writes that America can't do big things if we hate our neighbors. Amen, Ben. Americans have always done big stuff, winning world wars, walking on the moon, beating the Soviets. None of these would have been possible if tribalism and hatred for our neighbors had defined us. Good stuff. As we did with urbanization and industrialization in the 19th and 20th centuries, in the 21st century, we have to build big. Amen. We have to navigate technological disruption, relaunch a post pandemic economy, and win the tech race against the Chinese Communist Party. Political zealots can't do those things, only pluralists can. Recovery is possible. Here's what he says, and he concludes this piece by saying senators will have to acknowledge that a politicized echo chamber is unworthy of the world's greatest deliberative body. Citizens will have to see that recovery means resisting the temptation to reduce fellow Americans to caricatures of their political affiliations. He says recovery requires investment in things that will outlast partisan preferences. We must steward the present age and play our small but vital parts in the work of self government. This is what Americans have always done, and why people from all over the world still yearn to join this crazy, beautiful experiment in liberty. America was the best home freedom has ever had, and it still is. Let's build together anew. Oh, man, that is good stuff. Don't you love it? I think that's terrific. You can read that over at the Wall Street Journal, Ben Sasse's latest piece. All right, I'm going to go take a little commercial break. When we get back, we're going to go get John Miltimore talking about Donald Trump running third party. And then we'll yell, yeah! What do you think? Launch into a Jeremiah. We'll be back with more on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupamericashow.com.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today.
Fire.
Your printing company stinks. They charge you too much money, and they don't love America enough. We've got the solution. Patriot Printing USA. Whether you're running for office, saving souls, or just need business cards that will get you the new job you've been looking for, Patriot Printing USA has got you covered with the best prices around. Palm cards, brochures, bumper stickers, door hangers, you name it, we've got it. PatriotPrintingUSA.com. That's PatriotPrintingUSA.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.
Morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Petersen. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com. Thanks for sticking around through that commercial break. I've got John Miltimore coming up here in just a few minutes, but before we do, I thought another story would be worthwhile of sharing and bringing it to your attention because it involves your health. You may know that being adequately hydrated is important for day-to-day bodily functions like regulating your temperature and, of course, maintaining skin health, which notice I do have nearly flawless skin. But drinking enough water is apparently associated with a significantly lower risk of developing chronic diseases, a lower risk of dying early, or a lower risk of being biologically older than your chronological age. This is according to a National Institutes of Health study that was published on Monday. The study author says the results suggest that proper hydration may slow down aging and prolong a disease-free life. Wow. Learning what preventative measures can slow down the aging process is a major challenge of preventive medicine. That's because an epidemic of age-dependent chronic diseases is emerging as the world's population is rapidly aging. And extending a healthy lifespan can help improve quality of life and decrease healthcare costs more than just treating diseases can. So the authors thought optimal hydration might slow down the aging process, but in the studies that they did on mice, they did lifelong water restriction and on these mice and then compared them to ones that were properly hydrated and using health data that was collected over 30 years with humans and in mice. People who drank less water had worse health outcomes than those at the lower end of the range. So the study adds observational evidence that reinforces the potential long-term benefits of improved hydration on reductions in long-term health outcomes, including mortality. All right, looks like I just got a little tweak over there from John Miltimore. He says that he's ready to go. I'm just going to put you on standby for a moment while I go grab him. Why don't you do yourself a favor? I'll be back in about 30 seconds to a minute. Grab yourself a nice cold glass of water for your health. There we go. Good morning. Welcome back to the show. Thanks for being patient while I got my buddy John Miltimore, the managing editor for the Foundation for Economic Education, on the line. He's joining us now. Happy New Year, John. Thanks so much for coming on the program today.
Hey, happy New Year, AP. Happy to be here with you. Happy 2023.
Yeah, happy 2023. I've been kind of trying to give people a bit of an optimistic message today. There's a really great article in the Wall Street Journal by Senator Ben Sasse. I don't know if he had a chance to see it, where he talks about like the difference between civic pluralists and political zealots. And basically, he talks about like how civic pluralists are people who are convinced by argumentation and debate, and zealots are people who think that power is at the center of everything and that people can only be convinced if they're forced to be convinced by the government. But it's a terrific piece. And I think it sort of really is kind of a message that we need in this modern political climate where, you know, the people who control the debate these days are the authoritarians of both parties, where the left is demanding like a powerful bureaucracy and the right is demanding that we give power over to a strong man. But the people probably like yourself and myself think that, you know, it is possible to convince people through reason, debate, and argumentation, and that we don't need to force everybody to get along. And you couldn't even do that anyway in a country of 333 million people where everybody has different opinions. I mean, I don't know. Are you as tired as I am about all the people who are, you know, calling the end of Western civilization and the end of America as we know it?
Yeah, I think a lot of it does stem from fear, right? Like I think kind of like rats on a ship, people sense something's happening. And so there is fear there. I think some of that's natural because we see this upheaval and there is a cultural shift going on in people. I think they should be alarmed. But I agree 100% with Sassy's approach. It's funny, I saw a quote the other day from Karl Popper, and he said that a classical liberal doesn't want to convince you of anything, really. Like that's not the goal of a classical liberal. It's to share something and make you think, to maybe try to change your perspective like that. And I do think today, we do have this way, like we want to make people agree with our politics. And I just, that whole approach, I think, is wrong. Sharing ideas, planting a seed with someone, that is the right approach. But I don't see really either the right or left, especially the left. I don't want to just bang up on the left. I do think there is a part of the left that's kind of drifting away from that hardcore approach. They don't like some of the things going on in leftist politics either. So Sassy's right. I do, I try, you were probably with me, Austin. You have your days where you're like, life is great. I took my kids to the movies yesterday. We had a great day. Everything's good in my personal life, but you look out the window, there's some scary things happening. I worry about my kids' world, my grandkids' world. But the Stoic says, you know what? You can't control all these events. You can't control the whole world. Don't try.
There is a strong desire, though, by people to believe that the world can be controlled, and it's fascinating because you'll see this in a myriad of ways, right? So I almost feel like the people who are, think that the global elites run the world would feel more comfortable if they actually did run the world, rather than believe that most things that occur happen by chance or by random order, and that there really is no way even for a conspiracy of global elites to control the world, because this world is completely ungovernable, and that's a good thing. There is kind of like a desire for a belief in a higher power, whether or not that higher power is a belief in a god, or whether or not that is a belief in a global conspiracy of pedophile elites. People, I think, would prefer to believe that something somewhere is in control, and so because there is something comforting about that versus a belief of sort of like the void, if you will, that we're kind of alone in the universe, or that there might be, more random circumstances than people would like to believe. People would like to believe because, think of it. That's chaos and that's anarchy to a certain extent, right? If it's a universal order of anarchy, then that's very cold comfort to a lot of people who would probably rather prefer that someone somewhere somehow is in charge of things.
I didn't know you were so spiritual, AP.
I'm
No,
just
it's
saying
it's
that
great.
I think that that's most people. That's not me. I believe that there is no higher power controlling things, that the universe, that we're probably alone in the universe, and that things are more chaotic and random, and circumstances like coincidences are more common than people want to believe. But that's, that's the skeptic in me. But I still think that
No,
it's a beautiful
your larger
universe.
point.
Mhm.
I'll address. I think it's great. It was one of these quotes. I heard this quote as a kid, and it was a G.K. Chesterton quote, and I think my grandmother told me it. And it says, when people stop believing in God, it's not that they don't believe he said that it's not that they don't believe in anything; they believe in everything. And years later, I saw that quote, and I think I shared it on Twitter because I remembered it, and I think he's right. And there was a different theologian who I can't think of off the top of my head who shared a really profound thing. I'm going to do a post on it later, where he said all of us have this desire to worship, and he said if you don't worship a god, whether it's Allah or the Hebrew God or Jesus or one of the others, you will find something to worship, whether it's pleasure, whether it's food, whether it's government. Like, and I think you're right that a lot of people in this big world find it very reassuring that we have a small cabal of leaders that kind of make sure everything works, right? And it's a very simple idea. And once you study economics and history, you realize like, well, no, that doesn't work. But it's a simple idea where you have a small group of central planners, and they can make sure everything goes off without a hitch. And I think that is reassuring for people, and they like that idea of having those elites in control, because without them controlling things, all hell's going to break loose, they believe.
There must be something broken in my brain then, because I never felt that sort of like that yearning or longing for a higher power that I know you're right. I think most people do. They have a what some people describe as a God-shaped hole in their heart, right? They yearn for that. And so and I agree with you. I think you're right that if people don't worship God, then they worship other things like government, for example. As a matter of fact, I'm studying for my debate. I'm going to be on InfoWars here at the end of the week, and I'm debating the JFK conspiracy. And what's fascinating is that I'm reading about Lee Harvey Oswald's conversion to communism, and he says that he believes that communism is a religion, and that it's the best religion in his mind. So because he abandoned any concept in belief in God, then he kind of like worshipped communism in a sense. And what's funny, and I know I'm going to really anger a lot of people with saying this, but like in some of the Ayn Rand circles, not all of them, but in some of the Ayn Rand circles, some of them worship capitalism to a certain extent, right? Some of them worship, the free market to an extent. People who are in our circles, I know I'm not, according to the laws of modern politics and tribalism, I'm never supposed to call out any member of our own tribe. But like there is a kind of a zealousness for the free market that replaces a belief in God for some of the Ayn Rands who are the more hardened and determined atheists. Am I wrong?
I totally agree. There's religious fervor among libertarians, who are agnostics or atheists. Randians, even more so. I hope no Randians are watching, they'll get mad. But the thing is that they even have the same dogmas, right? Like there's certain things like, well, you can't say that, or you can't question that or propose that.
Mhm.
And I find it, just kind of wild. Because I have no dogmas. Like I can say something and say, well, I think that's a horrible idea. And there's certain things, like you have to understand, like in a job, like I was years ago, I was working for the History Channel. I knew I couldn't share certain things in the History Channel's magazine that were my views. You got to know where all that lies. But among people, I want to discuss ideas. I want to wrestle with ideas. And so yeah, like libertarians, we have our own things. Like you bet you got to kind of toe the line there. And even on Twitter, I think if you fall out of line, you're going to get clapped at and everything. And the extent, I guess, how much do you want to welcome that and wrestle with it, and how much do you just want to not to go, don't want to go there? I don't mind going there. I don't want to go there on Twitter because I don't want to get piled on. But it has happened there.
Coward, coward. If you're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen, I'm speaking to John Miltimore. He's the managing editor of the Foundation for Economic Education. We were supposed to be talking about the news, but now instead we're talking about God, the universe, and everything. Let's talk about somebody who wants power on the right. Donald Trump has threatened to run third party if things don't go his way. What do you think? Would he make a good Libertarian Party member? You think he could take the LP to victory this coming election?
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah. I think even Trump would say, like, you wouldn't run as a libertarian. This shouldn't surprise anybody that watched, the 2015, 2016 show, because Trump kind of always let that percolate, like he'd run third party. At the time, I remember, I was kind of in the never Hillary camp. I'm like, I just don't want another Clinton in office, especially that one. And this terrified me. I said, this jackass is going to give them power. And I thought he was maybe some Manchurian thing that was just going to, like, had to deal with the Clintons years ago, that he's like going to, steer the election toward them. This is my own conspiracies from years ago. Like, what is this guy doing? Well, then he actually started to do well, and then he won it. And they had everybody else saying, well, we can't let this guy be president. I'm like, well, wait, that's not fair. Like, he won. You got to kind of, like, he went through it. So now we're back here doing this again. Do we, here's the thing. I would say this is what you get when you make Donald Trump your leader, because it's all about him. He's not a team player. He's going to do what he thinks is going to help Trump the most. But here's my theory. This is more of a threat, because I think he knows if he's looking at another Democratic president, his life could get much worse. Because, like, they are not going to stop until they have him. We've seen this, like, they investigation after investigation after investigation. So if you ask me, Trump would much rather have, Tim Scott or Ron DeSantis as president than either Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or whomever.
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen, I'm speaking to John Miltimore. He's the managing editor of the Foundation for Economic Education. We're talking to him a little bit about Donald Trump running for president of the United States as a third party. That's a good point, John. If you think about it, Donald Trump is running for president of the United States in part, I think, as revenge for 2020. But probably more so because he's just trying to protect himself from all of these attacks that the Democrats are making, releasing his tax returns. Becoming president of the United States is probably the best and only shield that he has. So I guess that honestly that makes more sense. I mean, and if so, I mean that makes him actually a very powerful candidate if you think about it, John, because there's a strategy in the art of war where Sun Tzu calls it burning your boats and putting yourselves on death's ground. He's kind of on death's ground, if you will. His back is to the wall. But when somebody's back is to the wall, it's kind of like a cornered animal. I mean, they fight to the death, which would mean that Donald Trump would probably, I mean, he's fighting for his life right now. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, that's why Sun Tzu also said you always allow an enemy a retreat, right? Like, you want them to run away. You don't put them in a corner. Um, so yeah, I understand that's part of it. Then part of me also says, to play devil's advocate with myself a little, some of this is just pure ego on Trump as well. And I do think this is important, and I thought of it last night, after you pinged me, you remember how we got Woodrow Wilson? We had Teddy Roosevelt that kind of pulled the same thing. Teddy had been president and then was denied the nomination. Taft came in. Well, Teddy still wants to be president, so he's like, to hell with it. I'm going to be president. I'm going to run. They split the vote. Woodrow Wilson becomes the first Democratic president since, gosh, I guess you're going back, prior to the Civil War, I believe, unless there was one that snuck in there.
Remember Cleveland?
First one in oh yeah, excuse me. Yeah, Cleveland. Yeah, I forgot Cleveland was elected twice. So and what did Wilson was he ruined he you look at everything that went wrong, you can take a lot of it back to Woodrow Wilson. We've argued a little bit who's the worst president. I say Woodrow Wilson. I think you're more in the FDR camp. But we got the Federal Reserve with Woodrow Wilson. He got us into World War One, a war that made no sense. He created the income tax. He did all these things that just grew government over the 20th century. It all happened because of TR's ego. And I would hate for us to get a Woodrow Wilson like president for the same reason, because you had somebody who just couldn't let go of the presidency, had to be president again, and was not going to play by the rules that everyone else did.
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen, I'm speaking to John Miltimore. He is the managing editor of the Foundation for Economic Education. John, I'd like to move on to another topic if you have a few more minutes to talk about this article that I shared with you
bet.
about the national crisis of Generation Z. Jonathan Haidt writes in this article in the Wall Street Journal about Generation Z babies and what they had to come of age on, the year of Facebook acquiring Instagram, the beginning of the selfie era. He says that this meant that the first social media generation was one of what he calls weakened kids, who hadn't practiced the skills of adulthood in a low stakes environment with other children. They were kind of deprived of what he calls the normal toughening, the normal strengthening, the normal anti fragility. Before 2010, teenagers had flip phones. They'd text each other and say, let's meet down at the mall. They would do things together. Now, Generation Z's childhood is largely just through the phone. They no longer hang out together. And he worries about, especially about teen girls, saying more than 25% of female teenagers had a major depression. The comparable number for boys was just under 9%. I mean, we kind of frequently joke, John, I think you might be just a little older than me, but we frequently joke about the fact we are so thankful that we didn't grow up with every mistake that we made captured on video and posted in the fail army blogs for millions of people to see. I mean, I feel bad for this younger generation. Don't you, John?
I do, and it is what hits close to home for me. I got three kids, and my oldest daughter, my only daughter, she's 11. She's in Gen Z, and it's weird when I look at that because I don't think of my own kids slipping into this generation, but I already see some of this in her generation. Not her. I'm proud. My daughter seems very well adjusted to me and very tough. But I've seen it in some of her friends. Like you hear these conversations, like they're already in therapy, like and some of them are struggling with disorders already. But the therapy thing I thought was interesting because they almost thought it was cool. They almost thought like, look how complicated I am, like this is something. um so I think it is real. Like, now, can you make certain things fads too, like, sure. But I think all of the problems hate is talking about, you can see them manifested in this generation. And it's not surprising. We took the frailest generation and then we threw the pandemic on them and scared the hell out of them and only made it worse. So I fragility is real. I've read a lot of Hate's work on this. I think he's doing God's work right now. I think he's one of the few scholars that is really pushing not just the narrative, but really like great scholarship and trying to address this alarming issue. Can it make a difference? This is some of the things we're trying to do at Fee. We're trying to bring these, the good principles, good ideas to this younger generation. It's a challenge, because even the way we're trying to do it, we're trying to do it through some of the problem, through things like TikTok or things like, Twitter and Instagram, which actually I think Hate's right that this is part of the problem itself. So how we do this, I love Fee's role in what we're trying to do. I do think it starts in the home. Parents, this is something me and my wife have been battling with, this, like keeping the electronics at a minimum, trying to keep control of your own household, give them the right ideas, the right tools to survive this, all this stuff that's happening, to make them mentally tough, to make them strong. I slip into Gen X, and I'm proud of that. Gen X is a tough generation, right? We are the independent generation that just kind of, like I see these Gen X memes. I lean into that because I love it. I think that Gen X, we grew up in, like, I was born at the tail end of the 70s. The 80s were like awesome. I look back at it like, how did I not realize like the 80s were so cool at the time? Like, I look at them as sort of this golden era now in America. We didn't have the turbulence of the 60s. We didn't have the wars. Great time to grow up, and we grew up really free. And I want that world for my kids, and I see it's not that world. So we got to fight within our home to give them, the tools they need to just be stronger. I will say this, my last point. I look at the world and like my kids are going to be like lions. They're going to stand out because I think I'm creating good, tough, not just tough, but good, caring people as well. And I'm like, I hope other people, other parents are saying the same thing. Like, you know what? I see all these problems, but my kids, they're not going to be part of those problems. They're going to be ones that are leaders, that are showing kids that you don't have to be that way.
I like it. One last question, though, if you don't mind, John, before I let you go. In a generation that valorizes victimhood, how do we get people out of that mindset without sort of demonizing people who claim to have mental health problems?
Oh, it's a great question. Partly, it's not an easy one to answer. I think we have to really go back to what words mean. Like, what is strength, right? Um, it's funny because I look at my wife is like just a super strong person, but she's not a feminist. Like, she wouldn't describe herself as a feminist. And there's first gen, second gen, third gen. I think we've had them buy into this idea that being a strong woman means being kind of a victim, like getting into the culture war, getting into, all that. That's not strength, right? And in fact, we kind of flipped it on its head. To me, it's a sign of weakness if you're constantly trying to say like, oh, they're picking on me, or oh, I'm not getting fair treatment, or oh, like I'm giving my kids that mentality. You know what? The world's not fair. You got to deal with the world how it is, right? And there's going to be injustice. You're going to deal with that too. Get ready for it, because I don't care. It wasn't just the 19th century that had injustice. It wasn't just the 50s, and it wasn't just for women or people of color. It's always been there. We're all going to encounter it. Be prepared for it. And I think you deal with it that way. Give our children the right principles, and that's where it begins.
Good stuff. John Miltimore, managing editor of the Foundation for Economic Education. Thanks for your time today, sir, and Happy New Year. We appreciate you very much.
Hey, great seeing you again, AP. You have a great 23.
Good to see you too. Thanks very much. What do you think of John Miltimore? I thought it was a pretty terrific interview. I've got this clip I wanted to share from you before we go to a break and get Camellia Petersen of Tucker Carlson and Mike Rowe talking about the lazy tech employees of Silicon Valley. Take a look at this clip. This is fun.
On TikTok, you may have concerns about the state of the American economy. There are a lot of young white-collar employees, marketing majors from Davidson, filming themselves at work, and it turns out they don't do a lot. They take a lot of breaks. We're not being mean. These are their words. Here's a Twitter employee from San Francisco.
Before we get into that and have this hilarious clip, just want to say thanks very much to Quest Fanning over there for that super chat. Quest says, remembering the harmony of the 1980s and 90s is proof that today's racial tensions are the result of race-baiting leftists. Good stuff. Thank you, Quest. All right, let's continue on.
Welcome to a day in my life as a Twitter employee. So this past week went to SF for the first time at a Twitter office, badged in. Honestly, took a moment to just soak everything in. What a blessing. Also started my morning off with an iced matcha from
blessing. Why do they all talk like this?
the perch. Then I had a meeting, so quick.
Then I had a meeting. What is that? Like, why this affectation on the voice? Like these young people, it's like they're bored with life. They hate existence. Continue.
Off with an iced matcha from the perch. Then I had a
matcha.
meeting, so
Everybody
quickly
get an iced
scheduled one of these
matcha.
little pod rooms, which were so cool. They're literally noise canceling. Took my meeting, got ready for lunch. Look how delicious this food looks. Oh my goodness, I was so overwhelmed. Then made my way down to this log cabin area. I don't know what this is, but it was really cool. Played some foosball with my friends to kind of unwind a bit. Also found this really cool meditation room.
Well, Mike Rowe has spent his life reporting on work and, in fact, working. He saw that segment and reached out and said it's more important than ever to show the fact that a lot of Americans are doing real work. In fact, he's got a whole show about this called Dirty Jobs. It's been on the air for 20 years.
Love it.
He's also the host of How America Works on Fox Nation. He joins us tonight. Mike Rowe, thanks so much for coming on. When we did that segment, I thought of you banging out the script the whole time. This is the opposite of the kind of actual work Mike Rowe has dedicated his life to telling the rest of us about.
Yeah, you didn't tell me you were going to do that segment. Had I known, I would have insisted on following it up with something. So thank you for the chance to do that.
All right, let's have some ice cold clear water here this morning. We're not drinking any matcha tea, and I also have to break up the segment every once in a while and offer my own little unique commentary so that I don't get demonetized on YouTube.
Now,
Of course.
and let me just say, I can't speak really for anybody but me, but I would bet big that millions and millions of people jumped out of their chairs, screamed words we can't repeat on your program as a result of watching what you showed them. And look, again, it's not about being mean, but our relationship with work, our definition of what a good job is, that's something we can control. And you're so right. Portrayals of work shift with time. And I think part of the reason Dirty Jobs has been on the air for the last 20 years is we are the antidote to what you just showed America. We go to places where
Twitter
Watch it
employee,
again.
for
Hold
example.
on, just because it's
Honestly,
so good.
took a moment to just soak everything in. What a blessing. Also started my morning off with an iced matcha from the perch. Then I had a meeting, so quickly scheduled one of these little pod rooms, which were so cool. They're literally noise canceling. Took my meeting, got ready for lunch. Look how delicious this food looks. Oh my goodness, I was so overwhelmed. Then
Dude, these days are over in Silicon Valley. They are done. That kind of stuff is just not going to fly anymore. Oops. Hey, what the chat we're talking about there? There we go. All right. Why don't I go get Camellia Petersen? Let's talk about 10 things that you should not be doing in 2023. We're going to tell you what to do. That's right. We libertarians, we love to tell people what to do. Be free. We'll be back with more on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here. And we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hi, I'm Stephanie, Austin's wife. I want to thank you all for watching the Wake Up America Show with Austin Petersen. This show has been a huge venture for our family, so we would love it if you could join us.
I believe in liberty, and I believe in Austin's ability to spread the ideas of liberty. Do you?
I want to ask you today to join Petersen's Patriots with a pledge of $17.76 a month. Help us to stay cancel-proof so we can spread the message of limited government across the country. I joined Petersen's Patriots myself, just in a little different way. Visit wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and make your pledge today.
Thank you for watching the Wake Up America Show with my dad. Today, I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why you should visit Dad's online store at apforlibertyshop.com. Number 1. You can get exclusive freedom-loving merch designed by AP himself, or me mum, Steffi. Liberty Laura has made some designs as well, and blimey, they are great! Number 2. Most of these products are so wicked that they aren't even allowed to be advertised on Facebook or Instagram. Modern machine guns and a proper keychain. Plus, our Grover Cleveland t-shirt is so spicy apparently that leftists on Facebook specifically banned it from appearing on the website. Number 3. You're supporting liberty lovers just like you. Spend your money where you earn it and you help me pups build a community that supports what you believe. Bloody hell! This commercial is running too long. Gotta run. Bye now. Don't forget to visit apforlibertyshop.com. That's apforlibertyshop.com.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Petersen. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Well, libertarians, we love to tell people what to do, don't we? We've got a list for you today of 10 things that you cannot do anymore by order of law. And joining us now to discuss it is our good friend, Camelia Petersen. Good morning, Camelia. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Good morning. Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy New Year. Glad to have you here, CJ. You bgot this list to my attention yesterday, and I thought, well, maybe I'd get the guy who wrote it on, but he's just like dodging me.
Oh, man. I am a poor substitute, but I will try.
Our friend John Combus joined us once, I think, on this program. But today he's indisposed. Camelia is going to talk about this article that he wrote, 10 Things to Quit in 2023. And let's just go ahead and go down the list. What's number one on the list here, CJ?
Okay, so number one, first of all, if you if you look at it's on my Twitter, if you look at this article, the first thing you see is a picture, and it's kind of a series of pictures from 2016 to 2022, and it's all of these public officials, and they're standing around the governor when he's signing legislation and such, and there's a bunch of fig leaves all over the place. I'm like, what the heck is going on? So the first one is fig leafing. So things to quit is fig leafing, and basically saying the bipartisan epidemic of covering one's genitals for photo ops ran rampant again in 2022.
I don't get it.
And so basically he's talking about, like, that's how everybody stands. Everybody stands with their hands in front of them, and it's like it's the way you stand. You know,
so it's like
and I was thinking about this.
Like this.
Yes. Like nobody's going to come out and attack you there, but
that is, I guess I had no idea what he was talking about with that. So in 2023, people got to stop standing with their hands covering their genitals like a fig leaf.
So in all fairness, this is something I was thinking about. I was like, you know what? I joke all the time about how terrible I am at selfies. But the thing is I'm even worse at posed pictures, and I hate taking posed pictures. But the number one thing I'm always like is, where do I put my hands?
No. So what's funny about that is that I would stand like that when I was running for office. And specifically, one of the main reasons why I did that is so that it was very clear where my hands were. And that they were
sure.
because you always want to avoid the scandal of like grabbing somebody's butt accidentally, or just being or being accused of grabbing somebody's butt. It's kind of like, I don't know if you saw this trend like a year or two.
Keanu Reeves?
Yes, I was getting ready to bring it up. The Keanu Reeves. God, you're too smart, CJ. The Keanu Reeves, or it used to be, Keanu Reeves kind of popularized it and stuff like that, but it used to be something that we would make fun of like internet nerds for like having the hover hand. They'd be like standing next to a shockingly beautiful woman, and their hand would be like way out in space instead of on them because they were too scared to do it. But then I became a thing about being respectful. But that was one of the reasons why I did it. And when I ran for office, is I put the hands in front of my genitals because I didn't want to be accused of touching people.
Well, and the other thing too is that, it's body language is important. And if you stand with your hands behind your back, because I often have a tendency, if I'm standing somewhere, to link my hands behind my back, just as it's comfortable or whatever. But, people see that as, and kind of take that nonverbal cue as you hiding something or having something to hide. So there's a certain, I don't know. Anyway,
yeah, there is a picture of you somewhere. I think one of the earliest pictures I've ever seen of you, like standing out in the woods with this melancholy look on your face. It looks like something like out of the late 1800s, like wearing culottes. You know what I mean? You look like
not wearing culottes.
No, but you look like one of those like Mormon ladies that lives out in Utah, where like you know how they have their hair up in like that weird kind of like style and stuff like that, and it's all the same. It just kind of reminded me of that. All right,
great.
All right, moving on. Number 2 on the list of things you should not do in 2023. Let's hear it.
Resulting. Okay, so this was something that I had really not, I guess I knew what it was, but I hadn't heard of this before. John and I actually talked about this a few days ago because we were talking about rabbit holes of philosophies, and the observe, orient, decide, and act loop by John Boyd as a military strategy. Anyway, so he said, you ought to look into resulting sometimes. So I kind of cracked me up that he touched on it in here. And it's something we see all the time in politics. And it's, and I think we all do it, with our tribes to a certain extent. But it's the idea that you kind of applaud your own brilliance and kind of take things on as something that you accomplished, when it's kind of, something that's just dumb luck and it just happened to go your way. And well, you're going to own that.
Yeah, no, that's
I
really
did
good.
that.
You know what I really like, and this is just only tangentially related. Did you see like Lauren Boebert out in Colorado, how she like just barely won her election?
Yeah.
And she actually came out sort of chastened by that and was like, you know what, I need to be a little bit more serious minded. And I was like, wow, look at that. A politician actually learning their lessons. I mean, I wish there was some way we could kind of replicate that. I wish politicians could only ever win by like the slightest of margins so that they don't get too resulting. You know what I mean?
Right. I think, and I think that it's good for them to have that challenge, and it sharpens them, and it makes them pay attention to more than just, spewing all the usual outrage things. Kind of talking about that earlier with the Sasse article. But yeah, so I mean, we see this a lot, especially with legislative sessions coming up. People will be talking about all the things that they want to get done, and then they get into office and they haven't really done a whole lot, but they might have stuck their name on a bill as a co-sponsor, or they might have talked about something in their campaign, but they haven't done a whole lot. During their campaign, they didn't fundraise, and outside groups came in and supported them and kind of pushed them across the line. But you better believe that when anything remotely related to what they were campaigning on, or what they did, in the end, they're going to say, look, I got this accomplished, reelect me.
That's a good one. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen, I'm speaking to Camellia Petersen about things you should not do in 2023, Politics Edition. Number 3 on here, I really like this one. Let's go.
I knew you would.
Yeah. Go ahead, Camellia. What is it?
I knew you would. So starting sentences with "you should." And, and what he says is, some of you make a living by giving advice to bosses, clients, colleagues, consultants, and, good for you. That's your job. That's what you're supposed to do. But for everybody else, did anybody ask you what they think, that you should do? I know this is your pet peeve.
No one asked for your opinions.
Right. I know you've talked about this before, and it actually really amazes me that people message you, privately, and give you all kinds of advice and tell you what you should be doing and what you should not be doing. And I'm like, what?
Day.
I mean,
every day, I swear to God, I get so much unsolicited advice. People send me direct messages like, you should be doing this. You should not be doing this. You should be doing this. And they're never experts in the field, right? Or the worst is always whenever somebody gives me that kind of advice, it's something that I really am good at and I really know what I'm doing. And it's just kind of like, oh, God. And, you always have to be nice, right? You've always got to like kind of placate and play to the crowd and stuff like that, because I'm in a people pleasing business to an extent. Doesn't mean I always follow it. As a matter of fact, I guess a lot of times I probably don't, I probably need to be more of a people pleaser if I really want to be successful at this. But the fact remains that it's just, that's what I get for a life on the stage, Camellia. So I shouldn't complain. But you should, stop telling me what to do. How's that? You should.
I was going to say, so essentially, yeah, Compass is saying you should, just smile, nod, and shut up.
All right. Dustin over in the live stream says, America is great. You also got good advice. Freedom. Yes, absolutely. Some Ann Henry says, I'm so sick of this with raising kids. Everyone has a damn opinion. I know.
Well, you talked about that with Liberty Laura and all the moms groups on Facebook. In fact, somebody in the chat earlier said something about Facebook moms, and that cracked me up.
Our friend Joni Rankin, who I think she's a fellow Missourian as well. We got to get her in our friend group. Says, my aunt taught me to lose the word should. Good. Your aunt had some good words. You better get used to that, though, if you plan on getting married, says Brandon Meyer. Yeah, good point. Okay. All right, number 4 on this list is another good one that I really enjoyed, Camellia.
No.
What is it? I love this word.
Selective. I don't. Selective. Now, soft G or hard G?
Hard G.
Okay, because like I want to say gynocentrism, but it's
No,
gynocentrism
it's not
anyway. I
gynocentrism.
know.
Ew, gross.
Go hard G, Jif Gif.
Boo.
Anyway.
Disgusting. All right. Nobody wants a dirty.
So, oh, stop. Austin Wade. I know you're feeling better, but come on.
Oh, I'm about 85%. Okay, so what is selective gynocentrism?
So what he's talking about here is he was saying, remember when the women of the Missouri Senate saved the day? Nay, saved the entire legislative session last February. And so basically, what he was saying is that what happened is there was this article that came out. Our Senate was terrible last year, and it just really devolved into petty personal politics. And with the conservative caucus, and not much got done, which sometimes that's good. This was not good, but basically there was this thing where all the women of the Senate came together and, finally brought some sense to the Senate and, took charge and made things happen. And so, he's saying that basically, there's, choose either you can, be a woman who just inherently has these rights, or any man can acquire those traits with just a costume change.
Oh, I love this. What a majestic matriarchal moment it was. The women saved us all. What are your thoughts on that as a woman, Camelia?
I'm pretty hard on my own gender, but yes, I think there's and I know, I was watching a lot of the things that he's talking about in that legislative session, and I'm here to tell you that there were women that got on that Senate floor and they did the same thing as the men, and they said stupid, personal, petty things, and they're really no better.
Okay, there you go. All right, let's moving on. What's number 5 on this list of things you should not do in 2023?
Assuming negative intent. Now, this is kind of aimed at politicians, candidates, but really it's something I think that we can all take to heart. And that's basically if somebody asks you something, whether it's a constituent or a state employee or a journalist, like not everything somebody asks you is a gotcha question. Sometimes it may be more so with journalists, but not always, but especially from your constituents. And so, if somebody asks you, why do you support school vouchers or critical race theory or any number of things, I think we are in this culture of we reflexively react with defensiveness. And we assume that somebody is just out to make us look bad. And so there's a lot to be said. And I think when you were talking about Ben Sasse's article, that this is kind of ties into that we need to start assuming the best and then let people disappoint us, but assume the best first, because sometimes people will actually rise to our assumptions and expectations.
You're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show. I'm speaking to Camelia Petersen. We're talking about things that you should not do in 2023. A lot of these things apply to politicians, but some can be extrapolated. What's number 6?
Okay, pretending to not read the things that you read. And this is he's kind of referring to some insider baseball with Missouri politics on this one, and talks about how that, some of the St. Louis progressives and socialists, pretend to ignore their fellow Democrats who are, sometimes being actually reasonable in the things that they tweet, or, but they don't actually respond to someone. Instead, they just basically subtweet them, but they're doing it in real time. That's what they're seeing. That's what they're looking at, but they won't admit it. And so you end up with other people like John coming in to defend this person. And it's not intellectual honesty. So, basically, I think the lesson to take from that is that people should just be intellectually honest.
Oh, that's too much to ask. Too much to ask. All right. Things that you should not do in 2023. I think number 7 here can apply to pretty much anybody.
Yeah, enabling people who have told you about their addiction. I was thinking about this because he said, even on a holiday, even on a birthday, even if you really need a photogenic, pal of their demographic, so you can show social media how diverse your friendships are, And I will tell you, this is the thing that I hate most about politics, and it's the things that I refuse to do. It's kind of that transactional component to things. And, people will use other people to their advantage, even if that means that you are enabling them in some way for things that are not good for them, but if it's good for you.
Gotcha. Number 8, avenging fictional crimes. What's that one about?
Well, I think that everybody in our tribalistic culture wants to come to the defense of these supposed crimes that were committed against people on their side. And what he says about this is, if Jussie Smollett died tomorrow morning of natural causes, I doubt his true friends would wage war upon his 2019 MAGA hat assailants.
Oh, great. Number 9, what is using normalizing to insist upon itself? What is that about?
Yes. Okay, so in the constant push and pull on things, and this outrage culture, basically he's saying that if the Missouri legislature had a stock exchange for words, he'd buy shares this month in normalizing. So what he's saying is that Democrats are Republicans will accuse Democrats of normalizing drag shows and grooming. You can't use the word, like grooming is one of those words that's slowly being diluted to nothingness. And then the Democrats on the other hand will say that Republicans are normalizing, all of these other things, and they're normalizing racism and hatred and all of these things against these people. But nobody ever goes beyond like the why. Okay, normalizing, but be more specific. Why do you say that normalizing that is bad? And so it's poor arguing, and it's what we do in politics these days, right?
No kidding, but that's actually a really good point, right? That just saying that you're normalizing this is not an argument for why it's a bad thing. It's just supposed to be, oh, it's understood that you shouldn't normalize this behavior or such and such. But in order for us to really, win, we need to do what Ben Sasse was arguing as civic pluralists. We need to make better arguments and use argumentation to convince our fellow Americans and Missourians of why it's a bad idea to allow children at drag shows, right? Not just say, don't normalize this, blah, blah, blah. All right, last thing on the list here, Camellia, before we let you go. I think that this is a good one. You should really take this one to heart.
I should take this one to heart. Oh, well, okay. So not admitting you were wrong or too early or both. I was actually going to say, as a former candidate, I really wanted your perspective on this.
Oh, well, I feel like, or not admitting I was wrong or too early or too both. Is my ego too big to admit it? Being early in politics means being wrong. So explain it to me, and then once I understand it fully, maybe I will admit.
I think part of what he's referring to here is candidates who come out early in races, and they're candidates who probably never have a chance. And also candidates who come out and say things, and kind of like we mentioned earlier, with Lauren Boebert, come out and they do things and they don't come back and admit maybe they were wrong about something. That's a rarity in politics anymore. So he actually makes reference to some other pieces that he's written that talks about vanity candidates and, what they can do to maybe keep themselves in the limelight and make themselves more popular, kind of tongue in cheek, like raising money through OnlyFans or Oinky fans or whatever.
Oinky fans, that's hilarious. Yeah. No, it's true. I guess being early in politics means being wrong. I guess I don't quite understand like the context of that. Like what it means being early in politics, what mean like being ahead of your time, or like how do I understand that contextually?
I think so. That is my take on it, is that you do have a lot of these candidates who come out and they have misgauged their timing, and they're going to run anyway. And people, sometimes you never know people's motivations for why they're running. We saw that in the U.S. Senate race here in Missouri and any other number of races where people get in and you don't really know why they get in and they stay in, because it doesn't, is it principle alone? I am the biggest sucker for an underdog when it comes to principles. But at some point, pragmatism has to take over as well. So I do think that part of that is that sometimes you need to acknowledge that. I think we've seen this a little bit, I think, with the lady who ran for state representative here in Missouri. She's a Democrat in a very red district, Jess Piper, and she has been getting absolutely reamed on Twitter lately by Corey DeAngelis because she comes out and she's done this, all year, comes out and says crazy stuff about school choice. She lost by 50 points. I mean, she never had a prayer of even coming close to winning, but she's, for her, I think, motivation on this, and she will never admit she's wrong. I would love to see her do so. I think it'd be great for politics if she did, but she's not one of those ones that's going to come out and admit that she's wrong. She doubles down harder.
Makes perfect sense. CJ, anything else that we should know before we let you go?
Well, I don't know if you've talked much about New Year's resolutions yet, but I jokingly say that resolutions are against my religion. It's kind of like do or not do. There is no try.
Do you have any New Year's resolutions then or not?
I really don't have any particular my New Year's resolutions are just kind of a continuation of things that, I always work on. I do think that one thing that I often don't do that I'm trying to be better about is, writing things down, actually putting a physical record down of the things that I want to get done, the things that I want to accomplish, because I do think they're, actually putting those things in black and white on paper is important to making progress on those things. And I think what works for everybody is always different. But, things I want to get done are just, there's myriad and numbers of items that are, like I physically want to get done. But, there's also things that I've learned through the past year that maybe I'm changing my approach to, like, I want to lose a little bit more weight, but I've learned that, what? Tracking and counting calories is never, ever going to work for me. I'm not going to do that. It's not something I'm going to stick with. And you have to find things that work for you. And so, I found some of the things that I think are going to be successful for me and that I will actually stick with.
Yesterday,
go
ahead.
Well, I was just to say, I think finding what will help you stay motivated and consistent, is key.
Yeah, for sure. Yesterday, somebody on one of my YouTube videos said that because I was like, they were criticizing Andrew Tate. They were like, "You're just jealous of him because you're fat and you got a double chin." And I was just like, "Oh." So I got my Fitbit back on, and we're counting calories again. Very fragile ego. Camelia Petersen. I'd like to admit that I was wrong about something, but I'd have to find something that I was wrong about.
Oh man.
Maybe if we can find something, then I will admit it by the end of the show. But as for now, I can't think of anything. Camelia, thank you for your time today. Have a wonderful day.
Have a great day, everyone.
Have a great day. All right. What do you think of Camelia Petersen? You can send us a text at 573-319-1586. And when we get back, let's talk to Bex Bullitt about that mass murder in Idaho as 4 students, college students, were killed. Bex Bullitt's going to be joining us. She's comparing it to the Manson murders. We'll talk about that when we get back on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here, and we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hi, I'm Stephanie, Austin's wife. I want to thank you all for watching the Wake Up America Show with Austin Petersen. This show has been a huge venture for our family, so we would love it if you could join us.
I believe in liberty. And I believe in Austin's ability to spread the ideas of liberty. Do you?
I want to ask you today to join Peterson's Patriots with a pledge of $17.76 a month. Help us to stay cancel-proof so we can spread the message of limited government across the country. I joined Peterson's Patriots myself, just in a little different way. Visit wakeupamericashow.com/support and make your pledge today.
Thank you for watching the Wake Up America show with my dad. Today, I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why you should visit Dad's online store at apforlibertyshop.com. Number 1, you can get exclusive freedom-loving merch designed by AP himself, or me mum, Steffi. Liberty Laura has made some designs as well, and blimey, they are great! Number 2, most of these products are so wicked that they aren't even allowed to be advertised on Facebook or Instagram. Modern machine guns and a proper keychain. Plus, our Grover Cleveland t-shirt is so spicy apparently that leftists on Facebook specifically banned it from appearing on the website. Number 3, you're supporting liberty lovers just like you. Spend your money where you earn it and you help me pups build a community that supports what you believe. Bloody hell, this commercial is running too long. Gotta run. Bye now. Don't forget to visit apforlibertyshop.com. That's apforlibertyshop.com.
Were you exposed to hazardous materials while serving in the military and have an illness or condition as a result?
If so, you may be eligible for VA benefits and services.
Whether you need health care or want to file a disability compensation claim related to military exposures, VA is here to help.
Visit va.gov/military-exposures to learn more and apply today.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Petersen. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com. Well, a former university professor of this Brian Kohlberger character, the accused man who is being held who was wanted for murder of 4 Idaho students, Brian Kohlberger is being called one of the best students ever from one of his university professors. He was only one of 2 students that she recommended to a PhD program. He's called her a great writer and a brilliant student. Interesting stuff. This Brian Kohlberger character is apparently engaging in all kinds of strange antics in his jail cell, taunting guards and exposing himself. And some people who are speaking out about his history say that this guy never slept and that he was also addicted to heroin in high school. Of course, these are all just allegations at this point. Anybody that we talk about who's accused of a crime is always innocent until proven guilty. Joining us now to discuss this case is a private investigator. Her name is BX Bullet. You can follow her at BX Bullet TV. She's joining us right now. Good morning, BX. Nice to see you.
Good morning, Austin.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us today, BX. First of all, would you mind just give us a little bit of background on this horrific case?
Yeah, so really tragic, really brutal. I think that this one in particular really shocked people because of the not just because of just the brutal nature and the targeted nature of the attack, but also because of all the mystery surrounding it, because we didn't have a suspect right away. And because of all of the shifting narratives around the police investigation also added just a lot of clamor to this one. So basically we had 4 college students in Idaho. 3 of them were females. I believe 2 were in a sorority together. The other one was like a star athlete. Popular girls, beautiful girls, and one of their boyfriends who was also in a fraternity. And the way, so they lived in this house where it was divided by stories. There was a first story, second story, and a third story, and 2 people slept in each, story. And so I think there were 6 people total there asleep. There was no forced entry, but 4 of the people were dead in the morning, brutally stabbed, brutal, bloody crime scene. And so when I first heard about this, my immediate reaction was to compare it to the Manson murder, because honestly, I just looked at the house itself, and the nature of the girls being popular, being kind of icons or maybe symbols of something there. There was also, no forced entry. There was no suspect. And we got some interesting leaks about the crime scene, although we didn't see it. We didn't get any specific details, which is kind of interesting, right? But we also had somebody come out and say that the crime scene made it look like it was personal, because of the crime scene, which to me stood out. Because again, I'm thinking about Manson murders here. I'm thinking about, words and blood on the wall. I'm thinking about, specific things done to the body of the victim or something to leave a message, which is kind of the first thing. How else would they be able to say it was personal? I guess, yes, it was a knife attack, but knife attacks can be random. So, there was this really weird narrative that kind of came up, this crime scene mystery with the suspect on the run. The police investigation here was a problem. I would anticipate that as more information comes out, the police are going to face some criticism here. Because first of all, the first thing they said is, hey, there's nothing to worry about. Everything's fine. We got it under control. And there's no threat to the public. But then the very next day, they changed and say, actually, we don't really know if there's no threat to the public. So now everybody's panicking because this is a quiet college town that has almost no murders. And so, this is it's almost gives you a reminder of old movies like Scream or whatever, right? Where the whole town is in lockdown and whodunit and everybody's just looking at each other. And because the police were not transparent, the police chief himself had said that he regrets not being more transparent. Because of that, we had a lot of rumors circulating. We had a lot of fingers being pointed, lives being, ruined in the process. You had these 2 roommates who survived the attack. So they were actually on the first floor. The victims were 2 on the second floor and 2 on the third floor. And the first floor roommates woke up. They didn't even wake up during the attack. They woke up in the morning and found the crime scene. So there was a lot of suspicion there, even though, you have to think about what it must be like traumatized for those other 2 girls in the house.
Sure. If you're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen, I'm speaking to BX Bullet. You can follow her at BX Bullet TV on Twitter. We're talking about the crimes in Idaho of 4 college students who were brutally murdered, and now there is a suspect in custody. So what do we know about this alleged killer?
Yeah. So his name is Brian Koberger. He's a criminology student. Like he's actually getting either his master's or his PhD in criminology. And like you said, was supposed to be like, just a really brilliant student. There were some interesting things that I think have been confirmed. Like you mentioned some stuff about like, in the jail and some other things. I am so hesitant to believe anything that I see right now, reports like that, because of my personal experience with the Highland Park mass shooting investigation, where, there's still some narratives about that were pushed out there that are just lies. They're just wrong. Like, where did they even get it? Who knows? It could just be like somebody looking for their 5 minutes of fame from inside the jail who made something up. You don't even know. So you got to really be careful about making any kind of positive affirmations about things that they say. But so this guy, there's a few things here. Again, the Manson similarities, right? Any criminology student will have definitely studied the Manson case, probably something that he nearly obsessed about, because it's just such a fascinating case. And, there's not very many murders like this. Shootings, stabbings, random killings, sure. But like, this is a very personal, brutal, unnerving kind of attack, right? On a young, beautiful women who had some kind of status, right? He also had this criminology survey on Reddit, which was basically him saying that he was looking for, ex-cons who could answer like a survey about what they were feeling and what they were thinking, during their crimes and stuff, which was very odd. We also got some background that he had harassed women at some bars, was a little strange. Like you said, some people come out and just said he was a little weird. And we also have a leaker as of the last couple of days. And this person seems very likely to me to be related in some way to an investigator, or perhaps he works at the DA, but he's keeping himself anonymous, who said that the reason that they arrested Brian Koberger was because he had messaged Kaylee's phone repeatedly over the course of a couple of weeks. So there was a lot of, and again, this is all kind of preliminary information, but it does appear like they maybe had some kind of maybe fleeting relationship. And there were other rumors that Kaylee had said that she had a stalker. So this is, and we also have confirmation that Kaylee had worse injuries than the other victims. So there's been a lot of words floating around, incel, stuff like that. I'd be really careful to kind of paint a picture like that, because this guy doesn't come across as the typical incel to me. This guy comes across as more of like if anything, if he is guilty, we don't know, he's presumed innocent, right? Like a Dexter complex almost, right? Combined with maybe some sexual frustration, sure. But when you talk about incels, that's a really specific term now that refers to a community of people who, believe that women are basically, they're deserving of women, even though they're not able to like get women. So it's kind of specific. I wouldn't go that far as to say incel, but what's really concerning to me here is this narrative that we have now of one killer. I immediately, in my mind, there's no way that there was going to only be one killer, one person that committed this act. And another reason I feel that way is, again, because of the Manson murders, right? We learned a lot about what it takes to stab 4 people to death. It is, people have this idea of movies, serial killer movies, and it's not that way at all. In fact, the knife that
that's what I thought was so crazy, BX, was that how do you stab 4 people and like they don't wake up and start screaming? You know what I mean? Like,
well, they did. Yeah.
But there were 2 other people that were there. I mean, and they didn't,
Yeah. So there's been some answers to that question about the way the house was, kind of the floor plan of the house, the way that all of the roommates had been out drinking. So there was a chance that they were, dead asleep. There's also a lot of insulation, and the area they're in is relatively busy with like college kids bustling around and, like activity at that time of night at 3 a.m. because it's a college area. And so there's a lot of reasons they might not have woken up, but I have a theory here too. I mean, it might, of why he didn't kill the other roommates. Right. And if he had just, killed 4 people, adults, with this one single knife, which was a K-bar fixed blade knife. I think that most people don't understand the amount of physical effort, number one, that it takes to actually do that, because especially with this kind of knife, it's these brutal stabs and stuff. Like, I don't want to get too graphic, but there's bones and
that's the U.S. Marines. Yeah. That's a military knife.
Yeah, but that knife in particular, it's a flat blade. It's a straight blade. It's not curved. So it's actually meant more for just like a thrust, and then that's it, right? It's not meant to like pull in and out, and like, it's not meant to cut and slice. The blade will actually wear down really quickly. It'll dull. It could break. They do break. The tips break off. And especially when you're hitting bones and other things, there's resistance. And there's injuries to the hand, So we learned that from the Manson murder, that they actually kind of had to stop and take turns because their hands were getting so banged up. Really, I don't want to go into like a bunch of graphic detail, but it's hard, to enact that. And then multiple victims also had defensive wounds. They were fighting him. He was having to fight these people. So if he maybe decided not to, maybe he did intend to murder the other 2, but couldn't because his knife broke, or he was just too physically exhausted. But either way, I just find it highly unlikely that somebody like Brian Kohberger, who had researched crime, he would have known about this, right? Like, he would have understood this kind of dynamic, and that he didn't bring somebody along with him would be weird. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we heard about a new accomplice. And it also kind of gives some insight into why maybe Kaylee got the worst of it. She must have maybe she was the first victim, right? But it's brutal. It's awful. I think that the takeaway here is, number one, I do think that I'd be so surprised if there was only one person arrested for this one. And the other thing is that the way the police handled it was kind of awful. They didn't give people answers. And because of that, we had this little internet sleuth online community of people who think that they're investigators, and they've got their hands everywhere. And they're obsessive, and they're misinformed, they're emotional. And these kinds of people can really actually impede police investigations, right? The police should be trying to allay that by telling people, we're working on it. We've got everything under control, even though clearly they didn't, because it doesn't take 7 weeks to get a warrant on probable cause for a suspect like this. It doesn't. So, but when the internet communities get like all worked up, kind of like this, to me, it cheapens the murder. It makes you forget that these are real people that have families. It kind of makes they get obsessed, and to them, it's like one of those little mystery subscription boxes, right? Where they're trying to solve the crime, and it depersonalizes it. It also emboldens the suspects or the murderers, right, who might not be suspects yet, to post on social media, to do things to throw people off. There's a lot of trolls posting things that were later proved to be wrong. It's just bad. It's bad. And I think that it's something that we could take as a learning. We could take something from this and say that maybe the police should change how they deal with investigations like this in regard to the public internet communities like they are now.
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen, I'm speaking to BX Bullet TV about the murders in Idaho and about a man by the name of Brian Kohberger, who is a suspect in the case, who has been apprehended. In regards to the him being a criminology major and potentially going on to be a PhD. Somebody made the joke online the other day that just goes to show the value of an education, because apparently the guy, he drove there in his own vehicle and then drove straight home in his own vehicle. So he must not have been studying that hard.
One thing is that even though, again, we pull a lot of our knowledge from movies and stuff, right? But when you actually study the serial killers, the criminals, and the people who commit crimes like this, they don't respond kind of the way you might expect them to, because maybe he's, just imagine the brutal nature of this crime and the state that he must have been afterwards. Things get sloppy because he's not a cold, calculated Dexter killer. He's experiencing extreme distress and emotion. His memory is probably starting to, go haywire, and he's making mistakes because of the sheer adrenaline there. There's a lot of psychology that goes into it, but I think that, again, from movies, we've all been accustomed to just seeing the stone cold killer who just never makes any mistakes. But in reality, they make mistakes because they're human and they're experiencing physical reactions, which include fine motor skills might go out the window. You're shaking. You might have planned to wear gloves, but something happened. Any number of things that could go wrong. That it's not this like cold calculated. So I would be hesitant to say, oh, it's not him because he made these mistakes that he wouldn't have made. But I think that kind of ignores the reality of the situation. For sure. So yeah, I do see. I mean, I do believe that they wouldn't have arrested this guy and charged him without a lot of evidence. And again, we did see this leaker come out. And the reason I believe that he's telling the truth, and again, it's all kind of speculative, but he's reading off a report. So, and when you pause the video in certain places, you can see a reflection of him. So you can see that he's holding like what looks to be a report. So that to me cues me that he's either somebody inside the DA, somebody inside the coroner's office, even, who knows, who has some kind of inside information about what's going on there. And the way he's mentioned that Kaylee had lots of calls from this guy that she never picked up. So it may just in fact have been kind of a one night stand. I mean, I don't want to speculate on anything, but it could have just been a stalker. It could have been somebody who felt slighted by her. And the fact that we got that information early on, that it was personal based on the crime scene, to me, that's something you don't say unless there is something really evident, a note, a message, something that happened to one of the victims that was like unusual. It doesn't seem like that was something that would have been said early on.
We're running out of time here for this segment. BX, and very briefly, anything else that you think our listeners should know before we let you go?
I know that there's this tendency for people to get sucked into the morbid details of a crime and get really into like the investigation and pondering on the psychology of it all. But I would just encourage people that if you're one of those people that gets into true crime, please always keep yourself grounded and remember that these are people's children, they're people's daughters, they're people's best friends and sisters and brothers, and that, don't depersonalize it. Don't dehumanize them when you're trying to get involved in this. This isn't a movie. It's a real situation. And I think that the graphic nature and all of the things that I'm saying now, while they're disturbing, should be put out there more so that we can remember that these are people that, the reality is different from movies, and that we have to be careful in these big online communities not to kind of hive mind together and turn this into like a mystery that you're, like a fun mystery. It's not that. So
that's great advice. BX Bullet, you can follow her on Twitter at BX Bullet TV. She joins us every Tuesday at 8:30 a.m. She's a private investigator and a mom, and we appreciate you very much. Thanks, BX. Have a great week.
Thanks, Austin. Bye.
Thank you. Happy New Year. All right,
you too.
What do you think of BX Bullet? Send us a text, 573-319-1586. It's that time with all of these people watching the show. It's time for me to do a quick little advertisement. Talk about my friends at Lear Capital who are sponsoring the show. Lear Capital are your precious metals leader here in the United States. Have you been thinking about investing in gold or silver at some point? With the way that the economy has been going in the last year, maybe your New Year's resolution should be that it's time to take some steps to secure your financial future. Now, in terms of investing, gold and silver is a very important part of your portfolio. Yeah, you want to own stocks. Yeah, you want to own bonds. Yeah, you want to have a 401k, Roth IRA, and all this kind of stuff. But do you have the cornerstone of any portfolio? Do you have a percentage of your savings in gold or silver? If not, it's a good idea to remedy that. And if you're looking for a great gold dealer, I want to recommend my friends at Lear Capital. head over to their website at learaustin.com. Even if you're just thinking about it, just visit their website and get that free informational packet by going to learaustin.com. If you do that, then I get credit for it and they continue to sponsor the show. It's a great way to help to continue to support the Wake Up America show. You can also call them. They'll answer your phone call if you call them at 1-800-885-2175. That's 1-800-885-2175, or visit learaustin.com. That's learaustin.com. Great way to support the show. Get a free informational packet from our friends over at Lear Capital. They'll tell you all about what they offer. And there's no obligation to buy. Just get their free packet, send them your information, they'll send you back one of those gold packets, and you support the show. Great way for us to continue to have great content like this. We'll be back with my sign-off rant, my sign-off Liberty rant, when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com.
Hello, my name is Kelvin. Welcome to Frenchy Bush. This is my Dee Dee's website. Now I've decided to speak to you with my real voice for the first time ever to tell you about how cool Frenchy Bush is. But I've decided that this is the perfect opportunity to share with you. Frenchy Bush is a good website. You should follow us on socials. If you like Frenchies or any kind of bulldogs, me and my new brother George are going to try to make your life more fun.
Hello, I'm George. My neck isn't really thick yet, but it will be. We are so glad you're here. Please ignore my floating eyeball. It helps me spot predators who might be approaching from the sides.
Dee Dee made Frenchy bullshit to review things that he uses on me and my brother to tell you if it's good or bullshit. Take this collar, for example. Dee Dee really likes it. Dee Dee said it's really handy because us Frenchies got thick necks. Need something really tough. People think Frenchies are little, but if you look at us from below, you can see we are really pretty buff. Beefcake, yes. Look at my creamy thighs and chest. Yes, you like that?
Big brother, please focus.
Frenchy Bush. Please follow us for more great content and read the Frenchy Bush blog for more fun and cool stuff.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out.
Here's my resume again.
But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, and that frog will boil. It's a lie. But as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans,
the real-world experience.
It's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. And some days, maybe it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Make no mistake, reaching out is hard. Do it anyway. You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Petersen. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Nice to have you here today. We've even got some new friends, including our friend over on Twitch with a very creative username, Wet Fart Poop. But do you think I didn't have the courage to say it? We're not on mainstream media, baby. This is the internet. You can say whatever we want. Well, welcome to the stream, Wet Fart Poop. Glad to have you here. Good morning. Good morning. We always love making new friends. We do stream this show over on Twitch, Facebook, Rumble. We did Instagram for like one day, but that didn't work so hot. As well as on YouTube, where most of the Cantina crew likes to hang out these days. We're at youtube.com/AP for Liberty. So, Wet Fart Poop, if you ever want to join us over on YouTube, feel free to do so. That's where all the cool kids like to hang out. But if you're, of course, you're more than welcome to hang out there. It's a big stadium over on Twitch, and I think you're the only person in the stands. But we applaud you and salute you. Wet Fart Poop. One last story before I let you go. This one caught my eye over at the New York Post. Luxury fitness club Equinox is coming under criticism online after they launched a day-long campaign titled "We Don't Speak January," forbidding new members from joining. This is hilarious. On January 1st, as many are trying to ring in the new year by getting into shape, those who went to Equinox's website to sign up for the luxurious gym were greeted by an unusual message. "It's not you, it's January," a message said. The company called the month of January a fantasy delivered to your door in a pastel-colored box. This is hilarious. "You are not a New Year's resolution. Your life doesn't start at the beginning of the year. And that's not what being part of Equinox is all about," the message told hopeful new members. The message ended by assuring those wishing to sign up that the fitness club was looking forward to welcoming you to our Equinox community tomorrow. Then they doubled down on their stance after people got outraged. And I'm laughing about it. Matt Unruly is saying, "How about an extra hour since no afternoon radio?" Oh, yes, you wish, Matt. Actually, now I get to spend more time creating content for the Wake Up America show, which is really good. And once I'm fully healthy, then I'll be able to really blast this thing up. So my goal is for the new year, maybe a New Year's resolution, if you will, is to really make the Wake Up America show awesome, is to, conduct more, great interviews, continue to add more special effects and graphics, and to do things that are, just really groundbreaking here for a morning live stream like we do right now. So, so now that I'm not spending hours producing that afternoon show, as soon as this is done, I can actually go straight to work, getting content ready for you for the next day. And once I'm fully healthy and got this nasty bug and virus on my system and I don't have to rest as much, I'll be able to start doing all kinds of more awesome content for you. Wet Fart Poop says that he is declaring war on YouTube. I get it. You hang out over on Twitch, and we're happy to have you over there. And thank you for your cheers, by the way, Wet Fart Poop. We're glad to have you over there. Good old Wet Fart Poop. We appreciate you very much. All right. It's not you. It's January. I don't know. This kind of like elitism that drives people crazy and stuff like that. It makes other people insane. But frankly, I think it's hilarious and I fully support it. You know what I mean? Like in a time of super populism, I'm going to just join the elites, I guess. I don't know. But I'm going to start just losing some weight myself. Time for me to get my New Year's resolution in, which is my New Year's resolution is, eat fewer calories, move more, and read more books, which I'm going to do today. Doug H., nice to see you. Steffi Petersen, nice to see you. Hope you feel better soon. Thank you, Matt Unruly. I appreciate you very much for that. Yes, Quest, Ann Henry, Joni Rankin, Chris Morrill. First time listening, long time follower. Don't ever give up. I will never give up, Chris. It's a different Chris. That's good to see. Well, nice to have you here, Chris. Welcome to the program. Thanks so much for commenting today. All right, it's time for me to go. It's 9 a.m. I know, we had a great show today. What was your favorite part? Write in the comments down below. And don't forget, visit my friends over at Lear Capital. I keep pointing in the wrong direction. There we go. How's that? Right there. LearAustin.com. Get that free informational kit on gold and silver to help support the show. It's a free way to help support the show. You just give them your info, and then they send you a free packet on gold and silver. And, yeah. Wet Fart Poop says, get the Dick app. Track steps every 300 points. $10 rewards. Dick Sport Goods. I don't know about the Dick app. Wet Fart Poop. I think I'm going to just let that go. We'll see you tomorrow. Happy New Year. We'll be back with more on the Wake Up America show. I'll miss you guys. Won't you miss me? We'll see you tomorrow.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today.
Fire.
Your printing company stinks. They charge you too much money and they don't love America enough. We've got the solution. Patriot Printing USA. Whether you're running for office, saving souls, or just need business cards that will get you the new job you've been looking for, Patriot Printing USA has got you covered with the best prices around. Palm cards, brochures, bumper stickers, door hangers, you name it, we've got it. PatriotPrintingUSA.com. That's PatriotPrintingUSA.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.